My name is Alexis, but everyone calls me Lexi, and I can still hear the sound of the trash bag hitting the floor the night my mom kicked me out. She stood in the doorway of our Phoenix apartment, dropped my clothes at my feet, and said, "You are 18 now. No money, no job, and that is on you. So get out." I thought she was bluffing, like all the other times she threatened to throw my stuff on the curb if I did not act more like an adult. Instead, she shoved my backpack into my hands, opened the front door, and pushed me into the hallway, then locked it behind me without even looking back. In seconds, I went from having a bedroom to standing outside with a trash bag, a dying phone, and $20 in my wallet. My mom had really kicked me out at 18 with no money and no job. I stared at the door and imagined myself pounding on it, begging her to change her mind, promising I would find work and stay out of her way. Then I pictured the little satisfied smile she would have if I did that, like she had finally proved I was weak, and my pride burned hotter than my fear. So I picked up the bag and walked down the stairs, choosing to leave before I started crying in the hallway where everyone could hear. That night, I sat at a bus stop a few blocks away, hugging my backpack while cars rushed by like I was invisible, my phone screen glowing in my hand with her name one tap away. Calling her could have turned everything back into the same miserable routine, me apologizing and her pretending this was tough love instead of cruelty. I turned the phone off instead and whispered, "If you want me to survive alone, fine, I will." 3 years later, that same phone would not stop buzzing with messages from her, all starting with, "I am sorry. If you want to know how I went from that bus stop to watching my mom beg me to answer, stay with me until the end." The first night, I didn't sleep much at that bus stop. Every time a car slowed down, my heart jumped into my throat. By sunrise, my back ached from the hard plastic bench, and my throat felt dry from swallowing tears I refused to let out. I walked to a 24-hour convenience store nearby and washed my face in the tiny bathroom sink, trying not to look like a girl who had just been kicked out by her own mom. I spent 5 of my $20 on a cheap breakfast sandwich and the smallest coffee they sold, staring at the receipt like it had personally insulted me. 1/4 of my money was gone, and I had no plan. For the first few hours, I just walked, dragging my trash bag from strip mall to strip mall, pushing open cafe doors and asking, "Are you hiring?" The answers were almost always the same. "Not right now. Leave a resume online. Come back when we are less busy." I had never felt more invisible in my own city. By late afternoon, the Arizona heat wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, and I ended up wandering into a church basement that had a sign saying free meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I went because I was hungry, but I stayed because a woman with a clipboard and tired, kind eyes sat down across from me and asked my name. She introduced herself as Rachel, a social worker who helped teens who were technically adults on paper, but still very much alone in real life. When she asked where I was sleeping, I pretended to check something on my phone so I did not have to look at her, then finally admitted, "I do not really have a place right now." She did not gasp or pity stare, just nodded like she had heard that answer 100 times. By the end of that conversation, she had me filling out forms for a youth shelter that offered short-term beds and a shared room in a worn-down but safe house across town. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a door that locked behind me and a mattress that was actually meant for sleeping, not waiting for buses. Over the next week, Rachel helped me more than my mom had in years. She walked me through applying for financial aid at a local community college and showed me a flyer for their digital marketing program. "You are already on your phone all day," she joked. "You might as well get paid for knowing how to use it." It sounded like a real future instead of just survival, so I said yes, even though I was terrified of failing. At the same time, I hit the job hunt harder. After a few more rejections, a tiny independent coffee shop in Phoenix finally hired me for early morning shifts. The pay was minimum wage and my feet hurt constantly, but every pay stub felt like proof that my mom was wrong about me. I added a second hustle delivering food in the evenings, biking cheap plastic containers of takeout to apartment complexes and office parks for people who would never know their driver was sleeping in a shared room, and counting every dollar. To stretch my money, I started playing a game with myself in grocery stores. How many meals can I make out of $10 if I only buy store brands and sale items? I threw together strange combinations: canned beans with boxed macaroni, frozen vegetables with instant rice, and discovered some of them actually tasted good. One night, on a dare to myself, I propped my cracked phone against an empty cereal box, hit record, and filmed a shaky video explaining how I made 3 dinners from the clearance section. I posted it to TikTok under the name Emergency Eats, half as a joke and half as a diary of how I was staying alive. At first, it got maybe 20 views, one or two comments from strangers saying things like, "Thanks, I needed this. I am broke too." But that tiny flicker of connection warmed a part of me I thought was dead. While my mom pretended I didn't exist, complete strangers were telling me my ideas helped them. I still did not call her. I did not text, did not check in, even when the loneliness felt like a physical weight pressing on my chest at night. She was the one who said, "If you want to survive alone, do it." So I did. I worked, I studied, I cooked from almost nothing, and without realizing it, I was slowly building the first pieces of the life that would one day collide with hers in a way she never expected. It took a few months before I was brave enough to type my mom's name into a search bar. Until then, Monica was just a ghost in my head, a voice that said things like, "You are useless. You will never make it without me," every time my alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning for my coffee shift. One slow afternoon at the shelter, I was scrolling through my old Facebook account, the one I had not touched since high school, when a tagged photo popped up from a girl I barely knew. I almost scrolled past it until I recognized the profile picture in the corner. My mom, Monica Carter, smiling like she had never slammed a door in her life. In the photo, she stood next to a man in a crisp button-down shirt and a teenage girl in a sparkly dress. All three of them posed in front of a shiny SUV outside a big stucco house in a nice Phoenix suburb. The caption said, "Dinner with the Harpers. Love this little family." My stomach twisted. I clicked on the man's profile, saw the name, Elliot Harper, owner of Harper Auto and Detail, a chain of high-end auto shops around the valley. His timeline was full of pictures of custom cars, charity events, and one recent post of him and my mom at a fundraiser, her wearing a dress I knew there was no way she bought on a hotel assistant manager's salary. The teenage girl was tagged too. Her name was Kayla Harper, 17, all winged eyeliner and designer sneakers, posting haul videos from luxury malls like it was nothing. What hit me hardest was my mom's caption under one of Kayla's photos. She had written, "So proud of my girl. She turned my life around after a really hard season." There was no sign that I had ever existed. No old photos, no mention of a daughter who had supposedly decided to run off and travel the world. It was like she had deleted me and replaced me with an upgraded model. Curiosity started buzzing louder than the hurt, so I went deeper. On one of Monica's posts, an old neighbor commented, "How is Alexis doing? I have not seen her in forever." My mom replied, "Oh, she left home to travel and figure herself out. She does not really keep in touch." I sat there in the shelter common room, phone in my hand, staring at those words over and over. In her version of the story, she did not kick me out with a trash bag. I just drifted away, like some free spirit who chose not to call. That lie stung almost more than that night itself. It meant she wanted people to think she was a good mother who had done everything right, and I was the irresponsible one. The more I stared at the screen, the more something ugly and sharp started bubbling up in my chest. I remembered all the weekends in high school when I skipped hanging out with friends to work extra shifts at the grocery store and the diner, stuffing cash into an envelope in the back of my closet labeled college. That envelope had been my lifeline, the one thing that made the future feel less impossible. The night my mom threw me out, there had been no time to grab it. I had never let myself think about it, because the answer was obvious and it made me sick. Now, with my heart already broken open, I dug into my old bank account instead, the one I had used to deposit paychecks when the envelope felt too full to keep in the apartment. The account had been dormant since I left. I pulled up the history and scrolled back to the week of my 18th birthday. There it was, in cold digital numbers. A withdrawal that emptied almost everything I had. Done in person at a branch near our old apartment. The same day my mom told me, "You are 18 now. I am done." I remembered her insisting she needed my debit card to check something a few days before, brushing off my questions with, "Do you not trust your own mother?" I had trusted her enough to hand it over. She used my savings to step into this shiny new life with the Harpers, then told the world I had wandered off by choice. I felt my hands shaking while I scrolled through picture after picture of dinners, vacations, new clothes. My ramen and clearance vegetables suddenly tasted different in my memory, like they were seasoned with someone else's stolen cash. For a second, I wanted to smash my phone and never think about any of it again, pretend I did not know. But another part of me, the part that had figured out how to turn $10 into 3 days of meals, knew knowledge was power. Seeing how far she was willing to go to erase me did not just hurt. It clarified something. My mom had not just made a mistake in anger. She had made a choice. She chose a nicer house, a richer man, and a picture-perfect stepdaughter over telling the truth about what she had done to her own kid. I locked my screen, pressed the phone against my chest, and realized this was not just a sad story about being kicked out. It was the beginning of something else. Something that would eventually bring her perfect little world crashing down without me ever touching a single brick. Finding out what my mom had done did not make me feel powerful at first. It made me feel hollow. For a few weeks after I saw those photos and that bank withdrawal, everything in my life went out of focus. I still woke up at 4:30 for my coffee shift, but I moved like a robot, steaming milk and calling out names while my mind replayed that comment, "So proud of my girl," over and over. My customers would tell me to have a nice day, and I would smile automatically. But by the time my shift ended, my cheeks hurt from pretending. I stopped filming little cooking videos for emergency eats, telling myself it was just for a few days until I felt better. Those few days turned into almost a month. The app sat on my phone like a reminder of a version of me who actually believed people wanted to hear what she had to say. The youth house where I stayed had a curfew, and every night I would lie on my thin mattress staring at the ceiling, scrolling through Kayla's perfectly filtered life until my head ached. Part of me hated her, but another part just felt small, like I had lost a game I didn't know we were playing. One morning, I showed up late to the coffee shop, eyes puffy from crying until 3 a.m., and my manager pulled me aside. "This is the third time this month you have been late, Lexi," he said. Not unkind, but firm. "I like you, but I cannot keep you if this continues." Something about hearing those words out loud snapped me back to the bus stop, to the feeling of being one mistake away from having nowhere to sleep. I mumbled an apology and promised to get it together, then barely made it through the shift without breaking down. That afternoon, instead of going straight back to the youth house, I went to see Rachel. She was in her cramped office at the shelter, surrounded by stacks of files and a crooked motivational poster. She took one look at my face and said, "Close the door, sit down, tell me what happened." I told her everything in one long, ugly rush: the photos, the comments, the bank withdrawal, the way my mom had rewritten the story to turn me into the villain who ran away. By the time I finished, my voice was hoarse and my eyes felt raw. Rachel handed me a tissue but did not say the usual things people say, like, she probably did her best, or maybe she did not know what she was doing. Instead, she said quietly, sometimes the most dangerous thing for us is the story people tell about us when we are not in the room. You cannot control that, but you can control the story you tell about yourself. A few days later, my friend Jordan from class noticed that I had stopped posting on Emergency Eats. We were studying together in the library when he glanced at my phone screen and asked, "Hey, why did you bail on those cooking videos? They were actually good." I shrugged and said, "It is stupid. No one cares about some broke girl making meals out of canned beans." Jordan snorted. "I care. Apparently, the 20,000 people who watched your last video care too. You know most people would kill for that kind of engagement, right?" I had not even realized one of my older videos had quietly taken off while I was busy spiraling. We pulled up my account, and there it was, a simple clip of me making 3 different dinners out of $5 worth of groceries, sitting at almost 50,000 views. There were comments from people saying things like, "I am a single mom, and this helped," or "I am working 2 jobs, and this made me feel less alone." For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger or exhaustion. I felt seen. Rachel's words about choosing my own story and Jordan's blunt honesty started to blend together in my head. My mom had stolen my savings, rewritten my exit as me running away, and replaced me with a prettier narrative. But she could not control what I did with the life that came after. One night, instead of doom scrolling my mom's new life, I set my phone up on a shelf in the youth house kitchen and hit record again. My hands shook a little as I chopped onions on the scratched countertop, talking straight into the camera about how to make a full week of lunches from a single rotisserie chicken and a bag of rice. I did not mention Monica or Kayla, but every word was fueled by the knowledge that I had survived what they did to me. I posted the video before I could talk myself out of it. Within a few hours, the notifications started trickling in. Not a viral explosion, just a steady stream of likes, saves, and comments from people who sounded as tired and broke as I had the night I first slept at that bus stop. Reading them, I realized something important. My mom's opinion of me had almost destroyed me because I had let it be the only voice that mattered. But now there were other voices, from strangers who only knew me as the girl who could turn scraps into dinner. That girl felt worth fighting for. I decided that if I was going to drag myself out of bed at 4:30, it would not just be for a paycheck and a manager's approval. It would be for the future version of me who would never have to ask anyone, especially my mother, for permission to exist. I did not know it yet, but the more I poured myself into that tiny account, the closer I was getting to the moment when my story and hers would collide in front of everyone. By the time 3 years had crawled by, the girl who had slept at a bus stop with $20 in her wallet was almost unrecognizable, at least on paper. I was 21, one semester away from finishing my associate's degree in digital marketing, and Emergency Eats had grown from a shaky joke account into a real brand. It did not happen overnight. It was thousands of tiny choices stacked on top of each other, like the cheap ingredients I kept turning into meals. I filmed before dawn in the youth house kitchen, after closing shifts at the coffee shop, in borrowed apartments while friends were at work. I experimented with lighting made from desk lamps and aluminum foil, filmed with my phone balanced on towers of cereal boxes and cookbooks. I learned how to edit on free apps, cut dead air, add captions so people could watch on mute during night shifts. Somewhere between all the exhaustion, one of my series caught fire. I called it Emergency Eats, $5, 3 meals. where I would walk through the aisles of a discount grocery store and show exactly what I was buying, then cook it all on camera. People loved seeing the receipt, the total, the feeling that it was actually doable. The video that really blew up was me making a week's worth of lunches from one rotisserie chicken, a bag of rice, and a couple of frozen veggie bags. I woke up one morning to my notifications frozen, my follower count jumping, and brands I had only seen in other people's sponsorships suddenly emailing me with offers. At first, it was just free products and small gift cards. Then, a local discount grocery chain reached out, offering to sponsor a series if I used their sale items and mentioned their app. I almost cried in the back room of the coffee shop when I read that email, partly from excitement, partly from the sting that my mom was not there to see what I had pulled off. But then I reminded myself she had chosen not to be there. With sponsorship money trickling in and my delivery side hustle, I finally saved enough to move out of the youth house and into a tiny studio apartment in a not great, but not